The penthouse of Sterling Tower in San Francisco was a monument to everything I had achieved. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the entire western wall, offering a panoramic view of the Golden Gate Bridge and the sprawling tech empire I had conquered through relentless ambition and a willingness to sacrifice anyone who got in my way. The Italian marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of custom-designed chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes. The walls were adorned with original tech memorabilia, the first servers, the first prototypes, the first contracts signed with companies that had made me a billionaire. Julian Sterling, the self-made renewable energy billionaire who had risen from a trailer park in Alabama to the pinnacle of clean tech, stood at the center of my empire, wearing a Tom Ford suit that cost more than a luxury car, and I felt nothing but contempt for the woman sitting at the kitchen island. My wife, Dr. Charlotte Hart, was sketching in a simple spiral notebook. She was always sketching or calculating or reading scientific journals or doing something mundane and academic that reminded me of where she came from. She was a material scientist at Sterling Energy, the daughter of a high school physics teacher and a seamstress, a woman who had grown up in a modest home in Vermont. My venture capital firm had insisted on this marriage 10 years ago as a condition of their investment. They wanted someone intellectually grounded to balance my erratic nature. I had agreed, but I had resented it every single day. She was a constant reminder that I had sold part of my soul to build my company. Charlotte was beautiful in a quiet, unassuming way. Her chestnut hair was always pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her hazel eyes were warm and intelligent. But she wore no makeup, no designer labels, no expensive jewelry. She was content to exist in the background, to be a quiet, supportive wife who never made waves. I despised her for it. She had no ambition, no drive, no desire to be anything other than a researcher. She was the anchor that was holding me back, a reminder of my compromises. I had been seeing someone else for 5 years. Penelope Ashford, a glamorous tech influencer and socialite, was everything Charlotte wasn't. She was sharp, ruthless, and exquisitely beautiful. She wore designer gowns like they were pajamas and had 500,000 followers on social media. She was also the woman who had been feeding me intelligence about my rivals, helping me position myself as the king of clean energy. Tonight, I was going to end it and I was going to divorce Charlotte and marry Penelope. I had already drafted the papers and I had already transferred our joint assets into my name. Charlotte would walk away with nothing but the clothes on her back. IT was the least she deserved for being such a pathetic excuse for a wife. I walked toward the kitchen, my footsteps echoing against the marble floor. Charlotte looked up from her notebook, her expression calm, serene, infuriating. "Julian, dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. I made your favorite lobster tail with drawn butter." "I'm not hungry," I said coldly. "Put the notebook down. We need to talk." She closed the notebook obediently, as she always did. I stood over her, looking down with all the contempt I could muster. "Charlotte, this marriage has been a mistake," I said. "I never wanted to marry you. You're a burden, a liability, a constant reminder of my biggest failure. I've met someone else, someone who actually belongs in my world, and I'm filing for divorce. You have 72 hours to pack your things and leave. I've already had the lawyers prepare the papers. Sign them, and you can go quietly." Charlotte stared at me. Her expression was unreadable. No tears, no shock, just a strange, unsettling calm. "Julian," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "Do you know why the venture capital firm insisted on me? Do you know why I was chosen for this marriage?" "Because you are cheap and malleable," I said dismissively. "You were a way to make the investors feel like I was grounded. You were nothing more than a prop." Charlotte nodded slowly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a simple leather-bound folder, something I had never seen before. She placed it on the kitchen island in front of her. "Julian," she said, "I'm not just a material scientist. My mother was Dr. Evelyn Hart, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist who developed the solar cell technology that powers every single product Sterling Energy has released in the past decade. The technology that has generated 98% of your revenue. The technology that is worth over $40 billion that I inherited her research, her patents, her life's work. I hold the exclusive rights to the core technology that your entire company is built on. My blood turned to ice. I stared at her, my mind reeling. The solar cell technology was the foundation of Sterling Energy. It was the reason we had beaten every competitor. The reason I had become the dominant force in clean tech. That if it belonged to her... That's impossible, I said. I have the paperwork. I bought the patents from the estate. I have the signatures. I have. You bought a shell, Charlotte said calmly. My mother knew the risks of selling her life's work to a corporation. She structured the patents so that they could only be transferred with my explicit written consent. You never got my consent. You never even asked. You assumed I was just a simple researcher who didn't understand business. You were wrong. She stood up. Her posture was different now. Confident, commanding. The woman I had dismissed as a simple scientist suddenly seemed like the genius she should have been. I have the divorce papers here, she said, pulling a thick folder from her bag. I've already had my lawyers draft them. You will receive no settlement. You will receive no alimony. You will vacate this penthouse by midnight tonight, and you will never contact me again. If you try to fight me, I will revoke your license to use my mother's solar cell technology. Without it, your company is worth exactly zero. The investors will abandon you. The board will fire you. You'll be left with nothing but lawsuits, criminal investigations, and bankruptcy. I grabbed the papers. My hands were trembling. Did I scan them? Searching for a loophole, a mistake, anything. But the documents were ironclad. They were written by the best intellectual property lawyers in the country. Charlotte, please, I said, my voice cracking. This is insane. Did I didn't know who your mother was? Did I made a mistake? I was a fool. Please, give me another chance and I'll make it up to you. I'll be a better husband, She cut me off with a dismissive wave. You had 10 years to be a better husband. Julian Point 10 years to see me, to appreciate me, to love me. You chose to ignore me. You chose to belittle me. You chose to treat me like a servant, and now you get to live with the consequences of those choices. I don't need your apologies. I don't need your love. I don't need anything from you. I'm free. And you are destroyed. She walked to the door. She didn't look back. You have until midnight, Julian. And if you're not gone by then, my lawyers will have you escorted out in handcuffs. The door closed behind her. I stood in the penthouse that I had built, feeling the walls closing in around me. I had lost everything. My wife, my empire, my future. All of it gone in an instant. The weeks that followed were descent into hell. The press had a field day. Clean tech billionaire loses everything. Julian Sterling's humiliation. Charlotte Hart reveals secret inheritance. My reputation was shredded. My friends abandoned me. Penelope Ashford, my beloved mistress, the woman I had destroyed my marriage for, dropped me the moment she realized I had no money. She was already engaged to a rival tech CEO, that I was left with nothing. The investors panicked. The board called an emergency meeting. Without the solar cell technology, my company was a shell. The valuation plummeted from $40 billion to zero in a matter of weeks. The lawsuits started piling up, from shareholders, from business partners, from everyone I had ever wronged. The Department of Energy launched an investigation. The EPA launched an investigation. The SEC launched an investigation. I spent my life savings on legal fees, but it wasn't enough. I declared bankruptcy. I lost everything. I moved into a tiny studio apartment in a rundown part of Oakland. I couldn't afford my old lifestyle. Couldn't even afford a car. I started looking for work, but no one would hire me. My reputation was destroyed, that I was a pariah, a laughingstock. Months passed. I was forced to take a job as a janitor at a community college. Just to keep the lights on, I scrubbed toilets, mopped floors, cleaned up after students who had no idea who I used to be. I looked in the mirror every morning and saw a hollow shell of a man, a shadow of my former self. But the worst part was seeing Charlotte. She was everywhere, on magazine covers, on television, on billboards. She had taken over my company and transformed it into a global powerhouse. She had started a foundation, a scholarship program, a global clean energy initiative. She was using her fortune to combat climate change. She had won a Nobel Prize of her own, a testament to her genius. She was happy, radiant, thriving. She had everything I had thrown away. One night, I was sitting in a dimly lit bar, nursing a cheap beer, when she walked in. She was with her new husband, a kind, brilliant physicist who clearly adored her. She was laughing at something he had said. She saw me across the room. Her expression didn't change. She simply walked toward me. "Julian," she said, "it's been a while." "Charlotte," I said, my voice cracking. I need to talk to you. Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I was a fool. I was arrogant. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Please, can we talk? I'm begging you." She looked at me with those warm hazel eyes, but there was no warmth in them now. Just a quiet, final emptiness. "Julian," she said, "you made your choice. You chose greed over loyalty. You chose ambition over love. You chose a woman who would never have loved you over a woman who would have given you everything. You don't get to come back now. Begging for crumbs, dear cautionary tale, a lesson for other men who think they can treat women like stepping stones. Goodbye, Julian." She turned and walked away, and I called after her. But she didn't look back. That I sat in the bar, alone, the tears streaming down my face. I had lost everything. MY company, MY money, MY reputation, MY dignity. And the only woman who had ever truly loved me. Years pass. I remained a janitor, stuck in a dead-end life. I never recovered. I never remarried. I spent my nights replaying every moment of my marriage, every cruel word, every dismissive glance. I thought about Charlotte's smile, her kindness, her unwavering loyalty, and I realized that I had been the villain all along, and I had been given the greatest gift in the world, and I had thrown it away. One day, I was cleaning a classroom at the community college when I saw a familiar face on the television mounted in the corner. It was Charlotte, being interviewed about her latest breakthrough, a revolutionary new solar panel that was dramatically more efficient than anything on the market. She was using my former company to save the planet. She was happy. She had found her purpose. And I was scrubbing marker stains off a whiteboard. I sank to my knees, sobbing. The janitor's mop clattered to the floor. I felt the weight of my mistakes crushing me. I had been such a fool, such an arrogant, entitled fool, and there was no going back. I looked up at the screen, at Charlotte's face, and I whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But she couldn't hear me, and even if she could, it wouldn't have mattered, because I had destroyed everything we could have had. I had destroyed myself. The years continued to pass. I grew older, more worn, more broken. MY hair turned grayed. MY health deteriorated. I spent my days cleaning the halls of a community college that was a monument to everything I had lost. Charlotte had built a new research institute on the campus, a gleaming monument to her success. I could see it from the windows as I mopped the floors. One evening, I was sitting on a bench outside the college, eating a cheap sandwich, when I saw her walking past. She was with her family, her husband, her children, her colleagues. She was laughing at something her daughter had said. She was radiant, happy, free. She didn't notice me. She walked right past, her laughter echoing in the evening air. I wanted to call out to her. I wanted to beg one more time, but I couldn't. I had no right. I had given up that right when I threw her away. I watched her walk away, her silhouette disappearing into the twilight. I sat on the bench, alone, the tears streaming down my face. I had lost everything. MY company, MY money, MY reputation, MY dignity. And the only woman who had ever truly loved me. I closed my eyes. The cold was settling into my bones. I felt the darkness closing in, a permanent chill that would never leave. I was dying. I could feel it. And in that final moment, I realized that the greatest tragedy wasn't losing my empire, that IT wasn't losing my money, that IT wasn't even losing my reputation. The greatest tragedy was losing the one person who had ever truly seen me, and not realizing it until it was far too late. I whispered her name, Charlotte. But the only answer was the wind.